whole bunch of other departments that use this as well.
Thank you. Next question. Go right down here on the aisle.
So, what I understand about economics, in order for the government to contribute to economic growth, they have to tax less and spend more. But in order to balance the budget, you need to do the opposite. So my question to you is, how can you campaign on both at the same time?
The question is about a balanced budget. Let me explain. There's a lot of talk in Washington, D.C. about creating a balanced budget amendment. That means it would be an amendment to the Constitution, which would require the federal government, just like our state government has to do, would require the federal government to only spend as much as you bring in. Now, right now, we don't have that requirement on the federal level. That's why we have these deficits that we're running each and every year. So I support a balanced budget amendment. The problem with the balanced budget amendment, if we enacted it immediately, is if you remember, we're in a $1.3 trillion deficit this year. And if it's a law that you can't spend more than you can bring in, we'd have to cut $1.3 trillion of services. And the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, they alone for 10 years cost $1 trillion. We're talking $1.3 trillion in 1 year across all services. Americans would be hurt by this. It would downsize our military presence considerably, if not completely, and I think that's dangerous. We have to slowly work to a balanced budget. That's my proposal. I think it's a fair way, and I also think it's a measured way so as to not create so much hurt around the country.
Thank you.
As you know, you study Constitution, was written Amendment 14, Section 4, looks like saying about debt. There's no question about it. Therefore, we have no. It don't need amendment. Its Constitution says no any debt. Point is all. Have to cut spending on foreign country and other. Also, many government employees got $170,000, $200, $1 million. Cut it twice. Start this country. It will create many jobs.
Okay, thank you.
The question, as I understood it, was that during a recession, you have to tax less and spend more to stimulate the economy. I reject the premise of the question because that's called Keynesian economics, and Keynesian economics is a brilliant theory. The only thing wrong with it is that it doesn't work. It never has. What happens is they say, oh, we're going to spend. The government's going to spend more money to bring us out of a recession, right? So the government spends money, and that shows up as part of gross domestic product. They spend more money, right? What they don't show is that to do that, they're going deeper into debt, and you have to pay the debt back. So the long-term effect of that Keynesian economics is to depress the economy. We are not going to spend our way out of this. They've been trying that for years, and it keeps getting worse and worse. Hello, wake up. It's not working. We're going to have to get our way out of it by dramatically cutting spending, and the expansion should come not in the government, but in the private. I keep saying this. It's the private sector that creates wealth. All the wealth that you guys and your families have came from buying stuff from private businesses. What do you buy from the government? They don't produce anything.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
Again, she said it so well. Margaret Thatcher said, the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of other people's money. That's what we're doing. We're running out of other people's money. I understand if you took every last dime that people that make in this country over $250,000 a year, so you take everybody who makes over $250,000 a year, and you take all their money. I'm not just saying raise their taxes. I mean, you take every last dime they have. It's in the billions. He just said, we owe $15 trillion. That's a lot of billions, people. It isn't going to work. There's a guy you might want to look into, Milton Friedman. He had the right idea. And that's the economic plan that Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan went with. And that was effective. And that should be an unprecedented prosperity. That's what we want. We want prosperity. We want our ticket prices
poor and the middle class in this country are carrying the burden and they can't do it alone, while Wall Street corporations are getting off scot-free, and the top 2% wealthiest in this country need to start paying more of their fair share. So that's how you balance out the revenue side. But I've got to say something about this notion of a balanced budget amendment. Think about what that means. We elect people to go to Congress and to go to the Senate because one of the primary responsibilities as our representative is to balance the budget. That's their job description. And now some people are saying, oh, sorry, can't do that. I need a constitutional amendment to force me to do what you elected me to do. I say, Congress, get off your hands and do the job that we're electing you to do and give us a balanced budget.
Yes. Sorry, don't take it personal.
In case you couldn't hear, she wants to know where the funding is going to come to get the music programs and the art programs back and all the other things I'm talking about that I think we desperately need. Well, at the state and the federal level both. I've mentioned some at the federal level. We need to get rid of the huge tax breaks we give for corporate jets and off-sea accounts and all this to Wall Street corporations. We need to end the wars and we need to funnel those billions back into programs like job training and public education. And at the state level, we continually cut public education while at the same time we continually increase the budget for corrections. I want to stop locking people up like we do, and I want to start doing preventative things like giving a good, well-rounded public education starting in pre-kindergarten. And I want to funnel that kind of money back into public education.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, one more time with the questions.
Go ahead and stand up. Go ahead and stand up and ask the question one more time. That's okay, we're letting each other respond.
Oh, okay, I'll get it. It was not getting funding for the projects that Mr. Crossan suggested that we
I think music and art programs were what you specifically said. I'd love to hear from my potential opponents how they want to get music and art programs back into our schools.
Well, we need prosperity in their community. Prosperity allows us to buy houses. Houses have this stuff called property taxes. On the property taxes that your parents pay, they pay money to go to schools, to support the schools. When people lose their houses because of bad policies in Washington, D.C., they don't pay property taxes because they no longer have a house. So that's something that we really need to work on. Building private sector jobs, building prosperity through less government restrictions, through less laws that restrict businesses from hiring more people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as I say, education is not a federal function. But think about this. If you were to cut the federal government so that instead of consuming 25% of our nation's wealth, it only consumes, say, 10%, where would the other 15% go? It would go into the private sector, which would mean that companies would have more money to grow, build plants and equipment, hire people. That's how economies grow. And therefore, there'd be more money in the communities, and we wouldn't be struggling with things like not having enough money for music and PE. You know, I think you guys should be spending 3 hours a day physically active in sports and stuff like that. But they don't have enough money for, for regular PE classes. Brad Avakian says that we don't need to balance the budget amendment. Congress should just do its job and balance the budget. Hello? When was the last time they did that? They don't do it. That's why we do need to balance the budget amendment, to force them to do their job.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Norman?
I partly we have in the United States have one educational system. Because you attend university here, then you go to high school here, then you go to university other state, then you got job in another state. Therefore, we have to have one educational system in the United States. And about funding, again, money. Don't borrow money from China, Russia, Japan, other. We have to create more jobs. More jobs will create more education. We must spend more money on education than on prisons. Therefore, my agenda is more vocational school after even in high school start. After high school, more vocational school.
One of the boards that I serve on in our state is the Special Olympics of Oregon, and I help raise money for those children. Last week, I was at a dinner in downtown Portland where we raised tens of thousands of dollars for these children and adults who should benefit from that program. And that's an example of what we can do for schools and what we do for schools. And here's the trick. In order for private citizens to be able to give money to their favorite charity, whether it be the school programs, Special Olympics, or anything else, they have to have a job. They have to be prosperous. They can't be spending 40% of their income going to taxes, but rather we need to let them keep as much of their money as possible to do good things, to support their favorite causes. And that's what my wife and I have done over the years. That's what we want to continue to do that. We frankly have much more trust in Oregonians to use their money wisely than some federal government bureaucrat who doesn't understand our priorities here. How do you do that? You lower taxes, you make sure people have stable jobs, that grows the economy, and that feeds important services such as you described.
Are you signaling one more? Okay, we'll allow one more question. Following our
So, the sale of marijuana is $1 billion industry. But those profits go straight to criminals and bypass law-abiding citizens, while simultaneously taxpayers have to pay more prisons and police officers to enforce these laws. My question to all the candidates is how are you going to resolve the war on drugs?
Okay, thank you. The question is how we're going to resolve the war on drugs. Mr. Gilberman, we'll start with you.
My point is, this marijuana and other drugs must legalize. No government business to dictate you what to do. But first have to educate. You start from small children. From first use marijuana and other drugs is not good for health. Children was born with defect is so. But must be legalized. It's simple.
Mr. Greenfield.
Well, I don't think there is a war on drugs. How can you guys take drugs? Let's see, everybody be honest. I can tell you, there is no war on drugs. I got 5 kids, and I got to tell you, 2 of them at one point had problems with drugs. Nothing happened to them. I wanted the police to put them in jail, so they'd stop doing it. The police didn't even ask them who their dealers were. There's no war on drugs. Anybody can take whatever you want. Yeah, some even want to legalize it. Okay, fine. You know what happens when if you legalize drugs?
Tax profits goes down.
What happened when they legalized pornography? Do you think the use of pornography went down? When they legalized pornography, they started having porn stores showing up on corners in people's neighborhoods.
Okay,
So the point is that if you legalize it, you'll get more of it. You'll start seeing stores where they'll be selling marijuana. Hey, honey, I'll stop on the way home and get some marijuana. The use will go way up, and then people will get even stupider than they are now. Don't take drugs. They damage your brain. They make you dumb.
Hey, Ms. Michael.
Well, I don't know how you follow that. That was amazing.
You all know it's true. It makes you stupid.
I tell you,
Thank you. And again, the question is, how do you resolve the war on drugs, Mr. Baldwin?
Well, if I could, I want to combine your question with the other one on how you're going to pay for public education. Just set aside taxation and legalization for a second. Just look at it simply this way. We've spent billions of dollars on this so-called war on drugs and gotten what as a result? At the same time, we're cutting public education and healthcare programs. It's a great example where we should be taking billions of dollars like that and funneling it into great positive programs for young people that can boost public education and boost job training programs. That's a much better use of that kind of money. Thank you.
Well, it's kind of fun to talk about this, but it is a serious issue. Because if we lived on a border state where most of the drugs come into our country, you would know that it's a war zone. And I'm speaking about those border states south of us. And American citizens are being hurt by this. They're being killed, they're being kidnapped. We have not only drug trafficking, we have human trafficking. That means that there are people who are trying to take our young girls, even our boys, into slavery. And believe me, this is a serious situation. So the first thing you do is you really secure the borders. Not just some border that has a bunch of holes in it, but you really secure the borders. And here's the good news about that. Right here in Washington County, we have companies that have technologies that would help us secure the borders nationally. And that would put your parents back to work if those companies had the ability to provide their products and services down on the border. I'll be a champion of the First District companies so we can create more jobs and grow this economy.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to have to give all of our candidates a round of applause. As we did last week, I'm sure the candidates will stay and field the questions individually if you want to come forward. Thank you, everyone who